In the wake of the politically craven decision by House Speaker Mike Johnson to appoint the pardon-seeking Scott Perry and Trump's favorite doc, Ronny Jackson, to serve on the House Intelligence Committee, both of whom were described as legislative terrorists by Congressman Jerry Connolly, we're now learning that the decision didn't just come as a surprise to us and the intelligence community, but also to the Republican chair of the committee, Congressman Mike Turner, who didn't even get a heads up from Speaker Johnson. Punchbowl News reports that Turner found out his committee's two newest members were being added through the press. According to Punchbowl, several members of the committee, Republicans and Democrats, say they worry about the integrity of the panel in the wake of Johnson's appointment of the pair, adding that the indignity of allowing Turner to find out about the Speaker's final decision from social media was salt in the wound. Joining our conversation, former Assistant Director for Counterintelligence at the FBI, author of Long Haul, Hunting the Highway Serial Killers, which we'll get to in a minute. Frank Figliuzzi is here. Also joining us, former Acting Assistant Attorney General for National Security at the Justice Department, MSNBC legal analyst Mary McCord. Mary, I start with you. Let's put aside how unfit they are to handle state secrets and just deal with the risk that each of these men could be leveraged, could be compromised by their own exposure legally. I mean, Perry's phones were seized. He has been in all of the testimony provided by the January 6th Select Committee. He personally sought pardons, so in his own mind has some concerns about criminal exposure. Ronny Jackson was demoted because of his own substance abuse. They seem like classic marks for American adversaries.
They do. And in fact, you know, the criteria for giving security clearances focuses in on the same kind of risks you were just identifying. And I think that, and I know this has been said before, I don't think either man would be able to get a security clearance. I mean, one of the major adjudicative factors, the first adjudicative factor, is your allegiance to the United States. And criteria that would be disqualifying include sympathy for persons who have attempted to sort of overthrow the government operations or make it impossible to for the government to function. And these are things exactly that the January 6th rioters engaged in, and things that people like Scott Perry and Ronny Jackson have actually expressed support for. They also include things like inappropriate sexual conduct, inappropriate drug use, inappropriate alcohol use, and these kind of things. And to get to your point, the reason those are some of the criteria for a security clearance is because vulnerability on those factors does create a vulnerability to national security. I mean, you know, they have their own personal concerns right now about potential liability, criminal and otherwise. They also are direct conduits to Mr. Trump. So you can imagine, as the intelligence committee is trying to do its job and wants to hear from members of the intelligence community about threats across the spectrum, whether it's malign foreign actors potentially trying to interfere with our election, whether it's threats domestically for, you know, violence, political violence, or others. You can imagine a potential reluctance to even share that information with the committee when two people on the committee are so compromised. And so I think we have to be concerned about some sort of self-limiting of the information that is shared, and also you know, the FBI being concerned about taking any action and communicating it with the committee that will put targets on their backs, because we've seen them already have targets on their backs. And I'm sure Frank has things to say about that.
So, Frank, I mean, Christopher Wray's current position, as testified under oath on Capitol Hill, is that January 6th was an act of, quote, domestic terrorism. Notably, Ted Cruz agreed at the time, but then walked that back. On Tucker Carlson, that's another story. So if the current sitting Trump-appointed director of the FBI believes January 6th was domestic terrorism, what is he going to do with two members? This is Perry's role on January 6th, an act described by the Trump-appointed FBI director's domestic terrorism. He had his phone seized by the FBI for his role in plotting to overturn the 2020 election. He took the lead in Congress in refusing to certify the election. Chief architect of the plot, the lead person trying to install Jeffrey Clark as the acting attorney general. He sought a pardon for all that behavior on January 6th. He brought the Italy-gate conspiracy into the mainstream in the Oval Office, refused to respond to a subpoena. Ronny Jackson, the guy who attested to Trump's destiny to live to 200 and a weight number that's closer to mine than Trump's, was demoted from rear admiral to captain in the Navy because of his drug and alcohol use. He was a failed Trump nominee for the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. He attended the Stop the Steal rally at the Ellipse on January 6th. Again, January 6th is defined by the current FBI director as, quote, domestic terrorism. These two guys are on the Intel Committee now.
Yeah, this is the congressional version of the fox guarding the hen house. I can't overstate how devastating this potentially is for the intelligence community. I've appeared before the Senate and House Intelligence Committees multiple times in my role as head of counterintelligence at the FBI. And every time what I experienced was that there weren't Republicans and Democrats on the committee. There were simply Americans. And I often like to say that classified intelligence is the great equalizer, that regardless of party affiliation, once you see the threat and risk defined, all you want to do is defeat the threat and risk and support the intel community. Did they ask me hard questions? You bet. And I had to have the answers. But you're talking about committee members that literally review the budget. And much of the budget, by the way, is classified, even black budgets. So what does that mean? It means the public may never know if some of these members say, we're nixing that program, you're not doing that. What would that look like? We really don't want you working Russia that strongly. We think China, you should ease back on China. Or whatever, whatever the issue is. Don't tell me any more about Saudi Arabia assassinating journalists. We don't want to hear it. All of that could be happening. And I can't imagine a combative dynamic that would start between the briefers from the various intel agencies and the committee members if they just want to wreak havoc with the intelligence community, its budget, its mission, and its collection priorities.
So, Mary, this was how Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert responded. Matt Gaetz, congrats to Ronny Jackson and Scott Perry on these significant appointments. President Trump now has major reinforcements for his plan to obliterate the deep state. This is now the most pro-Trump intel committee we've ever had, period, by far, period. Lauren Boebert, finally some America First champions on the House Intel Committee. The MAGA wing, very, very happy about these appointments.
Well, I mean, to Frank's point, in my experience as well, and I did in my role at the Department of Justice interact, of course, with that committee, too. That is one of the things we looked for. We looked for the fact that the members there took intelligence seriously. They acted in a very bipartisan manner, and so did their staffs, right? Because as Frank said, once you've been privy to some of this information, you really do think you kind of put your politics aside because you see the threats that are out there. But I worry, and so one could say, well, why don't we think that would be the same for Scott Perry and Ronny Jackson? Well, just listen to the reaction of Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert. Listen to the things that Scott Perry has said himself in the past and Ronny Jackson. And the concern is that, this will just be an effort to now weaponize the Intel Committee in ways that we've seen other committees being weaponized under some of the leadership, such as the Judiciary Committee. We've seen the Speaker say, essentially, that they're going to have a three-pronged attack, essentially, to weaponize their committees to go after the quote-unquote deep state. So, I think we just have to really be concerned about how these members on that committee will influence that committee, how they will influence the interaction between the actual intelligence community, our intelligence specialists, our analysts, those who have literally put their careers on the line to gather intelligence to protect our national security, both from threats foreign and domestic. How will that change those interactions when people will justifiably be concerned about where the allegiance of these two men is? Is it to the United States and the security of the United States? Or is it to Donald Trump and whatever his interests are? And what they have shown so far in recent years is that it's the latter.
Yeah, I looked, and I may have missed it, but I didn't see any criticism or condemnation or breaking with Donald Trump after the Mar-a-Lago indictments from either of these gentlemen. Again, I didn't look everywhere. Maybe I missed it. Mary